I think we're going to have to really rely on other institutions as well to.
There we go. All right. We are back. We are inside. We are back in the studio. That was a lot of fun. That was so awesome. I'm so glad I got to do that. I'm so glad I took that Uber trip up to Hillcrest, Phoenix. That was awesome for helping me out. But I'm glad to be back in. There's no wind. It's nice and quiet. I went back and I rewatched the stream, and it was thank you guys for hanging in there, because that was something. Anita, hey, good to see you. So, guys, new president, huh? We got a new president, huh? All right. Let's see here.
To congratulate the president, except for Mitt Romney that I could see, but he's not the majority leader, and he's not the minority leader in the House.
So I have
the idea that any of these folks are going to do anything except what Donald Trump wants them to do at this point, I think it's a fool's errand. Why waste the time and the energy on it?
That's a
as a nation, we now need to move on. We can leave the baggage of Donald Trump sitting in the middle of the highway and keep going. It is time for us to get beyond this and not worry about what Republicans who have given him sycophantic loyalty from day one will do. When they prove to us that they're ready to join the rest of us Americans who are concerned about the future and health of this country, we will welcome them and invite them back to the journey. And we can pick up big debates around big policy. But right now, the country is showing its demonstration of wanting to move off of crazy and onto something that speaks true to who we are and what we aspire to be.
Yeah. And the problem, David Plouffe, for Joe Biden is that he now walks into that, what you just heard Michael Steele describe, in the United States Senate. You still have Nancy Pelosi's House of Representatives, who's going to still keep passing hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of bills that the American people want. And you have Mitch McConnell, who spent 8 years pretending that Barack Obama had no right to be president, had no right to pass bills, had no right to put in judges, had no right to do anything. He took a sort of antebellum attitude toward the president of the United States, as if he was somebody he could dismiss, and he didn't have to listen to him at all or work with him at all. And he spent his whole 8 years trying to destroy the Obama presidency. Why wouldn't he just do it again?
Well, I'm sure he will. So first of all, this question of Trump, Trump may not want to move on, but the world's moved on. You know, every world leader, for the most part, congratulating Joe Biden. Joe Biden's going to start announcing senior members of his administration within days. I think slowly you'll see some of the Republicans in Congress who've been cowardly and sycophantic admit that there's going to be a new president. So, Trump becomes increasingly irrelevant. Obviously, the Georgia runoffs now become huge. If Democrats can win both, then they've got everything in terms of power. Although, 50 seats is not 60 seats. It's still going to be difficult because you have to have Joe Manchin and Ed Markey, agree on things. But things like Voting Rights Act, infrastructure, I think you could get all the Democrats. So I don't think Mitch McConnell's going to change. One example is we now have the highest deficits as a percentage of our economy since World War II. We're not fighting World War II. Mitch McConnell and the Republicans in the Senate stood by as those deficits were jacked up. They didn't cut any spending. They cut taxes. And I'm sure Mitch McConnell, when he congratulates Joe Biden, will say, let me make one thing very clear. We're not going to help him spend a cent on anything. So that's what he's going to be dealing with. So he'll have to be clever about it. But on foreign policy and executive actions, presidents have immense power, and I expect Joe Biden's going to wield that.
Yeah. I hope he takes that lesson. He should listen to you because you're a smart guy, David Plouffe, as is Michael Steele, as is Tim O'Brien. Thank you guys very much. Appreciate you both, all three of you. And still ahead, NBC News presidential historian Michael Beschloss joins me on the truly historic nature of today's events. Not going to miss that.
Check this out. We have a photo of Joe Biden with his family the moments after he found out that he would be the next president of the United States. Let's see. Bring it up here. Just awesome. Let's see if we can. I have no idea. I don't see Jill in there. She's probably taking the photo. And Joe, oh man, Joe is looking like right into the camera. That is such an awesome shot. Such an awesome shot. Gianni, welcome back. ACP, welcome back. Yeah, ACP, that's what, that's why I want to work, hard in Georgia, to get those Senate seats, because pulling away power from that skeleton's hands, that turtle skeleton's hands is that's what we need. That is what we need. All right, let's check back in with CNN.
We're going to do knocks on doors. We're going to make sure everybody and their family member get involved in making this happen for us here in Georgia.
ACP,
we deserve it. We deserve new leadership. And this is the time.
What do you think about the fact that Donald Trump is no longer on that ballot? Do you see both of those seats going blue? Because this is going to be a huge battle.
I'm not concerned at all, because we was concerned, and look what happened.
Nina.
Long as we keep our faith and we do what we need to do, we can make it happen. I really believe that.
Thank you so much, Ms. Champ, for speaking with us about this. And, I spoke to the organizer of the rally earlier today. She's already gone home. She said she needs to rest up because they're starting the registration of voters for that runoff tomorrow. So the work does not stop.
Oh, all right, Natasha, thank you very much. All right, so Natasha's talking about those two runoffs, and they're crucial. They are the two runoffs that will decide control of the Senate. Georgia is now the center of the American political universe.
Amen.
It was also the adopted home, of course, of the late Congressman John Lewis. Earlier this year in Selma, Alabama, Lewis talked about why the vote was so crucial for American democracy.
We cannot give up now. We cannot give in. We must keep the faith, keep our eyes on the prize. We must go out and vote like we never, ever voted before. America is a different place, but we can make it much better. We must use the vote as a nonviolent instrument or tool to redeem the soul of America.
And that is what we have seen, record turnout in this country. The Reverend Raphael Warnock joins me. He is the Democratic candidate facing off against Republican Senator Kelly Loeffler in Georgia. And Reverend, I appreciate your time. It's good to talk to you again, sir. So what's your reaction to what we're seeing? We have reporters in Atlanta. Here's what we see on the streets, a spontaneous celebration. What is your reaction? Are you surprised at all to this great outpouring on the streets of Atlanta?
Oh, no, I'm not surprised at all. Thank you so very much. It's great to be here with you. And congratulations to the president-elect, Joe Biden, and our vice president-elect, Kamala Harris. Listen, the four most powerful words in a democracy are the people have spoken. And so I'm grateful for this outcome, for what's happening right here on the ground in Georgia. This is not magic. This is not something that happened all of a sudden. Stacey Abrams and others of us have been working on this for years. And I believe John Lewis, my parishioner, whose service I had the sad honor of officiating, is smiling right now. He's part of a great cloud of witnesses ushering us on. And we intend to amplify the voices of the people who are ready for change. And you're going to see that in this runoff.
All right, so I want to talk to you about this runoff. First, though, Reverend, it is so very close in Georgia. Indications that there'll be a recount on the presidential race. Are you confident that Joe Biden will succeed in securing Georgia on his win column?
There is no question that Georgia is well on its way to solidifying its status as a blue state. We've been working on this for years, and the other side knows it. That's why they've been engaged in voter suppression for so long. We saw record voter turnout in June. 1.8 million Democrats showed up, no more than ever. And we saw that again in this election. And I think that our side is going to be very energized to show up for the January 5th. They understand how much is at stake. And as I'm moving across this state, people are concerned. They understand how consequential this election is. They're worried about their health care. They need somebody to get control of this pandemic and help us to reopen our businesses and our schools. And so Joe Biden will need a lot of help in the Senate, and I'm deeply honored to be a part of that process.
All right, so let me ask you about where things are, because the whole country is going to be watching Georgia. The whole country. We are about to see, you're talking about voter registration pushes, money flowing in, right? It is all about Georgia now and these runoffs, these two crucial seats. It determines the Senate. It's going to determine what legislation Joe Biden can pass. So where you stood, in the race, right, this week, 32.9% of the vote. The Republicans in your race combined, right, Mr. Collins and Senator Loeffler, had 45.9%. So if she is able, Senator Loeffler, to consolidate that support, that combined support, how do you close the gap to win?
Oh, we'll close the gap. Remember, there were 21 people in my race, 21 people. And they were listed alphabetically. My last name begins with W, Warnock. So I was near the bottom of the list. And we finished in a very strong position. We finished first. And as I'm moving across Georgia, people are not worried about the politicians. They're worried about themselves and their own lives. And they're trying to figure out how they and their families navigate this thick darkness of a once-in-a-century pandemic and economic turndown that's caused them to lose their jobs. And they have not seen any relief from Kelly Loeffler, who for months has served in the Senate. She's done a good job of protecting her own portfolio. She hasn't done a good job at all protecting the people of Georgia. I intend to stand up for ordinary people here in Georgia, and I think that as they hear our message, they will respond, and we'll see the benefits and the fruit of that come January 5th.
And a final question here in terms, you look at neighboring South Carolina, right? Jamie Harrison, right? There's an unprecedented amount of money that went into that race. It did not do what Democrats thought it would do, right? Lindsey Graham is returning to the Senate. In the Georgia Senate races, we have already seen an incredible amount of money, $173 million plowed into the Georgia Senate races thus far. Are you worried about the money factor, Reverend Warnock, when you're trying to focus on grassroots voter registration? Are you worried about the money factor?
Well, I was outspent during the general. If you could buy this seat, Kelly Loeffler would have it by now. But I'm going to be focused not on who I'm running against, but who I'm running for. And I have to tell you that over the last few days, my website has seen a whole lot of traffic. Folks have been going.
And I think the thing to worry about is that you may have, I hate to talk already about 2024. I'd promised my wife I wouldn't, but we're in a situation where you may have someone with a lot of Donald Trump's contempt for democracy and his political views, but who is a lot smoother and less sloppy than he is, and may be much more successful in holding on to power. So when you have that many people having seen what Donald Trump has done to endanger democracy, cause hundreds of thousands of people to die unnecessarily of COVID, the number of people who are now suffering economically, to be contemptuous of the crisis over racial justice in this country, which has only gone on for 400 years or more, to see someone like that and for them to have voted for him in large numbers, it says that there is a potential for that to return. We've got to really keep that very much in mind.
Yeah, Brazil, you have Viktor Orban in Hungary. You have Poland is slipping backwards toward fascism. I mean, it can happen anywhere.
And that's another point, right? That's why this is so important, is that there are a lot of countries who slipped with Donald Trump, right, backwards. And this is huge. And so I'm all about, let's show the parties, let's show the world that, this is how you defeat fascism. But it's also interesting what he was talking about, and we need to remain vigilant, is the fact that people are going to study how Donald Trump did what he did, and they're going to try to do it better and more clever. And so we got to bring it. We got to bring it. But honestly, say what you want about Joe Biden. Joe Biden is the man. I think he's awesome. But I can't wait for Kamala to like take on these like 2-bit like despots, you know? Like, oh, it's just gonna be that's who they fear, right? Women. A strong woman, because it makes them, they just unravel, right? All their talks of like, oh, you know, the beating of the chest, and then you have like a smooth ass woman saying like, no, man, we love everybody. You know, we're not gonna accept the divide and conquer, strategy anymore from the Republican Party. So
this is the feeling of
it's good. It's good.
Now that we
All right. Lico. He's talking about Tucker. Yeah. You and Steve Schmidt, you guys got to talk. Vicky, first time Trump's been quiet. I love it. Silence is golden. Silence this morning is also orange. Brittany Atwood, tax the rich. Amen, Brittany. Amen. Kevin. Oh, poor Kevin. Americans will soon be reciting the Pledge of Allegiance to the Communist Party of China. Thanks to Biden. Oh man, I love it. I love the Trump supporters who are like, communism. You'll see. They stole the votes. You'll see. Donald Trump has a healthcare plan. You'll see. Obama spied on his campaign. You'll see. That's it. Those Trump, you'll see. Like, those two things need to go like hand in hand in history, because it's just all bluster. All bluster. All right. What else we got here in the comments? George Kraft, don't fool yourself. COVID-19 beat Trump, and only barely. Biden certainly didn't. Certainly didn't? I don't know, man. It's almost certain that Joe Biden is the one who beat him. Now let's hear, I think, hear this virus's policy. This virus's, now let's hear, okay, now he is saying that, now let's hear his virus policy, his economic policy, his police policy, and his foreign policy. Yeah. Harris will put you in jail. Okay. Nina Lisa, short after Trump was elected in the USA, we watched in horror what he was doing and acted, but his election prevented us from the same mistake. Right. Yeah, exactly. Like, there are countries that are sliding, and we have to remain vigilant. Absolutely. So thankful for this today. Awesome. Nuria Locks, Joe Biden 2020. Vicky, only Trump's goons are brain dead, dumb, stupid, idiotic, pathetic fools like Trump. Vicky is on a good one this morning, folks. All right, we got Joe Biden. Let's get to Joe Biden. Well, KPBS may have been a little early. They may have mistakenly put that out there. Yeah, it looks like they did. So, my apologies. I don't think we have Joe Biden talking yet. But we will. I know Phoenix has been awesome at watching his channel. I should have his channel up here. Nina, don't even worry about it. Don't even worry about it. I love the comments. Don't stress it. Yeah, it looks like we do have. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Oof. Oof. Yeah, but don't, Nariah, right? Like we want you here, but like, come on. Let's all be respectful of the chat, yeah? So it looks like news outlets are getting ready for Joe Biden to speak here. It looks like yeah, we were just waiting on it. MSNBC is still hanging. Sure. Yeah. Let's get it going.
Saw the projection on the screens inside. They surrounded him. They congratulated him. Said, "Pop, pop, we won." And I found myself earlier today quoting Irish poetry, a favorite poem of Joe Biden about how hope and history rhyme. Because the other interesting way this ended up playing out is today is the 48th anniversary of the very first Senate election Joe Biden won, a historic upset, making him one of the youngest senators in history after he beat a very popular Republican incumbent. And I wanted today to talk to two of the people who've been with him along that journey the most. His sister Valerie, who ran his campaigns.
You guys can hear that music in the background. That is
Maggie
longtime
Rogers. Chief of Staff and now the head of his transition. And
don't know
we've
who
talked
she
about
is.
The steadiness of the Biden campaign.
Try to find her on YouTube. Try to find her on Spotify. Find her on iTunes. Wherever you get your music.
Joe Biden has always had a look in the
her
mirror
album,
test,
I think it was a 2018 album, is one of my favorite albums. Sousa, Barack Obama's photographer,
as he said, looking in the mirror
has
saying,
posted many
many
posts with her music in the background.
And downs of his campaign, he never lost doubt that he was doing the right thing. And then I talked to his sister about the enormity of the task ahead for him, and she said, he's a realist. He's so familiar with the weight of the responsibilities that are coming towards him, but he's also, through it all,
seeing those girls,
and he really
those young girls with their mom in the car,
things for the American
man.
People. And that's really, I think,
that's who we're doing this for, guys.
An opportunity to let this soak in.
Yeah, we're doing it for us, but we're also this is a generational thing that
hesitation about being
we literally like. We may have just saved the fate of the world.
Vice President tonight, he's had a chance to lay out some of the themes over the last few days about the need to unify the country, but certainly an opportunity now, outside of the worries about recounts and the processing of ballots across the country, to just speak about this moment in American history and to share that moment with Vice President-elect Kamala Harris. His sister also told me how proud he is of the history that she's making tonight, and why he wanted her.
Thank you for liking the video. Thanks for liking the video, guys.
We don't often hear.
That's just an awesome way to interact. You can also follow me on Twitter I'm right here at
shared
Brendan
with
Plank.
us,
You can
I think it
subscribe.
was
Make sure if
yesterday,
you do subscribe,
that
make
was
sure to turn your,
important to him, that when
your
he
privacy
was,
settings to public so you can get your name up
when
there.
he was in that role, when he was the vice
and then
president
for a couple bucks a
elect,
month, you can also
he just had that experience
member,
of being on the
which goes
stage
straight
and giving
into
her
making me
a
make
chance
more
to be
videos,
heard and
just
to
like
be
Tomas
seen and to
Mundo
start
did.
to take step into her official role was important to him. I want to go back though to your point about Irish poetry, because I'm not Irish, but I know enough about Irish poetry to know that there is a lot about the darkness and light coexisting. There's been so much darkness in Joe Biden's light. He has always sought through his faith and through public service to find the light. And I thought so much about his biography, about the accident that claimed the life of his first wife and his daughter and injured his sons, about his son Beau's heroic but ultimately losing battle against cancer, about Joe and Mika were talking this morning about Joe Biden's own really frightening health scares, the aneurysm. And I was just thinking that he is someone who reaches for that light, not because he's had this sunny and rosy path, but for the opposite reason. And when you look at what he went through this week, it was finally within reach. I think this campaign had a very realistic plan for reaching 270. They put one foot in front of the other, and ultimately that is exactly how they crossed the finish line. They may ultimately rack up more states than what we already see on the board called for them. But I wonder if you can just talk a little bit more about how his life prepared him for this week.
You know, I was thinking about, I don't think a lot of people appreciate that Joe Biden was preparing to run for president in 2016. That may not have been what the Obama team had thought when they chose him as vice president, that this might be the capstone of his career.
I know those guys, that they're interesting, they're talking, but this is what I want to do right now. These are the memories that I want to get back to. God damn, you guys, I'm like seriously so emotional today. Oh my goodness. Like, God. Come on, baby. Let's go. Let's go. What a day. All right, so before Biden comes out and gives his speech.
Here we go. Forgive me, we'll come back.
First family of the United States of America.
Oh. No pressure, ACP. No pressure, man.
Hello, Chicago.
I love it.
If there is anyone out there who still doubts that America is a place where all things are possible, who still wonders if the dream of our founders is alive in our time, who still questions the power of our democracy, tonight is your answer. It's the answer told by lines that stretched around schools and churches in numbers this nation has never seen. by people who waited 3 hours and 4 hours, many for the first time in their lives, because they believed that this time must be different, that their voices could be that difference. It's the answer spoken by young and old, rich and poor, Democrat and Republican, black, white, Hispanic, Asian, Native American, gay, straight, disabled and not disabled, Americans who sent a message to the world that we have never been just a collection of individuals or a collection of red states and blue states. We are and always will be the United States of America. It's the answer that led those who've been told for so long by so many to be cynical and fearful and doubtful about what we can achieve, to put their hands on the arc of history and bend it once more toward the hope of a better day. It's been a long time coming, but tonight, because of what we did on this day, in this election, at this defining moment, change has come to America. A little bit earlier this evening, I received an extraordinarily gracious call from Senator McCain. Senator McCain fought long and hard in this campaign, and he's fought even longer and harder for the country that he loves. He has endured sacrifices for America that most of us cannot begin to imagine. We are better off for the service rendered by this brave and selfless leader. I congratulate him. I congratulate Governor Palin for all that they've achieved, and I look forward to working with them to renew this nation's promise in the months ahead. I want to thank my partner in this journey, a man who campaigned from his heart and spoke for the men and women he grew up with on the streets of Scranton and rode with on the train home to Delaware, the Vice President-elect of the United States, Joe Biden. And I would not be standing here tonight without the unyielding support of my best friend for the last 16 years, the rock of our family, the love of my life, the nation's next First Lady, Michelle Obama. Sasha and Malia, I love you both more than you can imagine, and you have earned the new puppy that's coming with us to the White House. And while she's no longer with us, I know my grandmother's watching, along with the family that made me who I am. I miss them tonight. I know that my debt to them is beyond measure. To my sister Maya, my sister Alma, all my other brothers and sisters, thank you so much for all the support that you've given me. I am grateful to them. To my campaign manager, David Plouffe, the unsung hero of this campaign, who built the best political campaign, I think, in the history of the United States of America. To my chief strategist, David Axelrod, who's been a partner with me every step of the way. to the best campaign team ever assembled in the history of politics. You made this happen, and I am forever grateful for what you've sacrificed to get it done. But above all, I will never forget who this victory truly belongs to. It belongs to you. It belongs to you. I was never the likeliest candidate for this office. We didn't start with much money or many endorsements. Our campaign was not hatched in the halls of Washington. It began in the backyards of Des Moines, in the living rooms of Concord, and the front porches of Charleston. It was built by working men and women who dug into what little savings they had to give $5 and $10 and $20 to the cause. It grew strength from the young people who rejected the myth of their generation's apathy, who left their homes and their families for jobs that offered little pay and less sleep. It drew strength from the not-so-young people who braved the bitter cold and scorching heat to knock on doors of perfect strangers, and from the millions of Americans who volunteered and organized and proved that more than 2 centuries later, a government of the people, by the people, and for the people has not perished from the earth. This is your victory. Now, I know you didn't do this just to win an election. And I know you didn't do it for me. You did it because you understand the enormity of the task that lies ahead. For even as we celebrate tonight, we know the challenges that tomorrow will bring are the greatest of our lifetime. 2 wars, a planet in peril, the worst financial crisis in a century. Even as we stand here tonight, we know there are brave Americans waking up in the deserts of Iraq and the mountains of Afghanistan to risk their lives for us. There are mothers and fathers who will lie awake after their children fall asleep and wonder how they'll make the mortgage, or pay their doctor's bills, or save enough for their child's college education. There's new energy to harness, new jobs to be created, new schools to build, and threats to meet, alliances to repair. The road ahead will be long. Our climb will be steep. We may not get there in 1 year or even in 1 term, but America, I have never been more hopeful than I am tonight that we will get there. I promise you, we as a people will get there. There will be setbacks and false starts. There are many who won't agree with every decision or policy I make as president. And we know the government can't solve every problem. But I will always be honest with you about the challenges we face. I will listen to you, especially when we disagree. And above all, I will ask you to join in the work of remaking this nation the only way it's been done in America for 221 years. Block by block, brick by brick, calloused hand by calloused hand. What began 21 months ago in the depths of winter cannot end on this autumn night. This victory alone is not the change we seek. It is only the chance for us to make that change. And that cannot happen if we go back to the way things were. It can't happen without you, without a new spirit of service, a new spirit of sacrifice. So let us summon a new spirit of patriotism, of responsibility, where each of us resolves to pitch in and work harder and look after not only ourselves but each other. Let us remember that if this financial crisis taught us anything, it's that we cannot have a thriving Wall Street while Main Street suffers. In this country, we rise or fall as one nation, as one people. Let's resist the temptation to fall back on the same partisanship and pettiness and immaturity that has poisoned our politics for so long. Let's remember that it was a man from this state who first carried the banner of the Republican Party to the White House, a party founded on the values of self-reliance and individual liberty and national unity. Those are values that we all share. And while the Democratic Party has won a great victory tonight, we do so with a measure of humility and determination to heal the divides that have held back our progress. As Lincoln said to a nation far more divided than ours, we are not enemies, but friends. Though passion may have strained, it must not break our bonds of affection. And to those Americans whose support I have yet to earn, I may not have won your vote tonight, but I hear your voices. I need your help, and I will be your president too. And all those watching tonight from beyond our shores, from parliaments and palaces, to those who are huddled around radios in the forgotten corners of the world, our stories are singular, but our destiny is shared. And a new dawn of American leadership is at hand. To those who would tear the world down, we will defeat you. To those who seek peace and security, we support you. And to all those who have wondered if America's beacon still burns as bright, tonight we proved once more that the true strength of our nation comes not from the might of our arms or the scale of our wealth, but from the enduring power of our ideals: democracy, liberty, opportunity, and unyielding hope. That's the true genius of America, that America can change. Our union can be perfected. And what we've already achieved gives us hope for what we can and must achieve tomorrow. This election had many firsts and many stories that will be told for generations, but one that's on my mind tonight is about a woman who cast her ballot in Atlanta. She is a lot like the millions of others who stood in line to make their voice heard in this election, except for one thing. Ann Nixon Cooper is 106 years old. She was born just a generation past slavery, a time when there were no cars on the road or planes in the sky, when someone like her couldn't vote for two reasons: because she was a woman and because of the color of her skin. And tonight, I think about all that she's seen throughout her century in America: the heartache and the hope, the struggle and the progress, the times we were told that we can't, and the people who pressed on with that American creed: yes, we can. At a time when women's voices were silenced and their hopes dismissed, she lived to see them stand up and speak out and reach for the ballot: yes, we can. When there was despair in the Dust Bowl and depression across the land, she saw a nation conquer fear itself with a new deal, new jobs, a new sense of common purpose: yes, we can. When the bombs fell on our harbor and tyranny threatened the world, she was there to witness a generation rise to greatness and a democracy was saved: yes, we can. She was there for the buses in Montgomery, the hoses in Birmingham, a bridge in Selma, and a preacher from Atlanta who told the people that we shall overcome: yes, we can. A man touched down on the moon. A wall came down in Berlin. A world was connected by our own science and imagination. And this year, in this election, she touched her finger to a screen and cast her vote. Because after 106 years in America, through the best of times and the darkest of hours, she knows how America can change. Yes, we can. America, we have come so far. We have seen so much, but there's so much more to do. So tonight, let us ask ourselves, If our children should live to see the next century, if my daughters should be so lucky to live as long as Ann Nixon Cooper, what change will they see? What progress will we have made? This is our chance to answer that call. This is our moment. This is our time to put our people back to work and open doors of opportunity for our kids, to restore prosperity and promote the cause of peace, to reclaim the American dream and reaffirm that fundamental truth that out of many we are one, that while we breathe, we hope, and where we are met with cynicism and doubt and those who tell us that we can't, we will respond with that timeless creed that sums up the spirit of a people. Yes, we can. Thank you. God bless you, and may God bless the United States of America.
What must it feel like? Any of it. Start anywhere on the list. After this campaign, to address that kind of a crowd, to have this agenda awaiting, the prospect of bringing up two beautiful little girls in the White House, prospect of the House training a puppy in the White House. It's been a long time.
Democratic primary contest. It just makes you feel like that's a pretty good way to start.
Well, I absolutely agree. First of all, I cannot wait to say Madam Vice President. I mean, I've been saying it all day long. And I think it's because they're going to make really great partners. I mean, he needed, and he knew that he needed a skilled partner, somebody who really does understand government, somebody who understands, like he does, the importance of building those relationships that Claire described. And I think that, you know, Kamala Harris, for all of her skills that we've seen as the skilled, you know, sort of prosecutor on the Judiciary Committee, what we haven't seen, and we could see it on the campaign trail, was her ease and the fact that she just knows herself and is comfortable with herself. And I think that Joe Biden needs somebody like that who will tell him the truth, but do it quietly and advise him in the kind of way that he gave advice to Barack Obama. And I think that they are going to make, and already are making, an amazing team for the task ahead. It's exciting to see, because all of us look at, and I know as a black woman, I look at Kamala Harris and I am so filled when Claire talks about those tears. I've been fighting back tears all day long, of the tears of hearing the young girls and the women who are out there saying that they are so excited because it means finally that glass ceiling is just like breaking apart. But I think that they are going to build the kind of partnership that we will come to expect in a president and a vice president working on behalf of the American people.
Claire and Donna, I need you. I need more of you. So stick around, please. Don't go anywhere. I'm going to turn now to NBC News correspondent Rahema Ellis. She's in Philadelphia for us. Rahema, describe the scene there.
What I can tell you, Nicole, we're going to pan the camera over here a little bit, because this is the other side of the convention center. And we've got dueling parties over here. There are Biden supporters on this side, and there's a small group of Trump supporters on the other side. But without a doubt, the Biden supporters own the real estate over here, celebrating the fact that this city, Philadelphia, a city that is rich in history and the founding of this country and of democracy, today, this state was the key in putting Joe Biden over the top in terms of becoming the next president-elect. This is very peaceful, I should mention. It is loud. It is boisterous. but people are wearing masks. There's no social distancing, but people are wearing masks, and they're making their voices heard on both sides. But those in the Biden camp are a lot more in number. They are far outnumbering those in the Trump camp. And over here, I want to talk to a group of women, young women, 17 years old, 14 years old, grandma back there, aunt over here. They came down, and you tell me, why is it that you came down here?
It's a very historic moment. I'm very thankful to experience this and have someone in office to advocate for minorities as a Latina, and to see someone of color be in such an empowering position, especially Kamala Harris. She's been through so much, and she can advocate for us.
And you're feeling something similar?
Oh my gosh, when I found out Joe Biden won and Kamala Harris is going to be the next vice president, I actually cried. I literally cried.
And the fact that Philadelphia and the votes that came from here, from this state of Pennsylvania, those 20 votes that pushed him over the top, what does that mean to you?
I was very nervous. I was watching ever since election day. I was like, please turn blue, please turn blue. And then I was like, finally Philly stood, like, we carried it, because we're so diverse, and I truly appreciate that at Philly. Like, that's my favorite part.
And you're back there, you support these girls, and you're happy for what's happening for them?
Exactly, yeah. And then this is my mom. She's first generation from Mexico, too. Mom, you want to say something?
I just want to say this is amazing, and it's so good. It feels so good in so many levels. You can't even imagine how important it is for us. And all the girls, you know, that are witnessing history.
Amen. It's all, Nicole, it's all about the history that's being made here. You know, as I said, this city, this state is no stranger to history being made. People came out spontaneously. There's been dancing in the street. And what I'm hearing from people is that they are celebrating the fact that this country may be turning from an idea of division to one to unity. That's what they're hoping is about to happen going forward. Nicole?
Rahima, is there much talk about how intense the counting of all the ballots were, almost to 100% of all those ballots counted, and the extreme importance of Pennsylvania this week?
Oh, absolutely. And that's not lost on those who are Trump supporters. In terms of the counting of the ballots, one of the things that they kept saying over these last few days was stop the count. And those on the Biden side were saying, continue the count. They thought that that would be democracy in action. Because as those on the Trump side were saying that they thought that there was some fraud, something that was wrong that was happening here, city officials said, there is no evidence. Show us the proof. We would gladly go into court and litigate this. But you just can't make claims without backing them up. And so people were very, very happy that this count continued. It continued to the point that it was the tipping point. Again, this Keystone State became the key in determining the outcome of this election, and it all was because the counting continued. Nicole?
Such an important point. Rahima Ellis for us in Philadelphia. Thank you so much. On that note, let's bring in Michael Schmidt, Washington correspondent for the New York Times and an MSNBC contributor. Mike's new book, Trump versus the United States, deals with many of the themes playing out in Washington this week. And Robert Costa is with us, Washington Post national political reporter, MSNBC analyst and moderator of Washington Week on PBS. Mike Schmidt, Rahima wrapped up the state of the celebration in Philadelphia and encapsulates really what's going on across the country. She said that at the rally where she is right now, the celebration side are the Biden supporters who were there because of the importance of Pennsylvania and having every vote count. On the other side are some Trump supporters who wanted the vote count stopped. Now, she also had some reporting there right at the end that it was not lost on the people of Pennsylvania that all those legal challenges, be it part of Trump's political strategy or legitimate legal questions, seems like a known unknown at this point, that none of them were founded, and that this is a state that takes pride in their elections, in their systems, in their elected officials. And it seems like a rare instance where there actually was a guardrail on Donald Trump in the form of local election officials, a very competent Secretary of State, and a very competent State Attorney General.
Yeah, and I don't think Donald Trump ever had a moment where he wished he had his credibility. But at this point, where he has Rudy Giuliani out there and others who have pushed these baseless accusations throughout his entire presidency, it's not surprising that people aren't going along with it. Look, it was Giuliani that pushed the stuff that led to the impeachment. It was Giuliani who defended the president and pushed baseless accusations during the Mueller investigation. And here he is again, and not a lot of people are paying attention to it. There's two things that I think are sort of remarkable about this. And one of them is that you haven't heard or seen the Attorney General, Bill Barr. He's probably the president's greatest asset in his cabinet, and something that civil rights lawyers and Democrats feared would be a real presence around this election. You hear Rudy Giuliani, but you don't hear Bill Barr. And the second thing is that you don't hear sort of an elder statesman or a respected Republican lawyer coming forward to be the front of this effort. You don't see the names of the lawyers who represented witnesses in the Mueller investigation or in previous Justice Departments, or even that defended the president in impeachment. You don't see them out there at the front of this, taking on this argument.
You know, Bob Costa, that makes me wonder if it is something that no one wants to be associated with, or if it is, as Chris Christie, I think, has said over on ABC News all week long, an effort that if you live in Trump's fantasy land for 10 minutes and say, all right, so fine, maybe assume that these so far seemingly meritless cases are successful, they do not have the capacity to change the outcome of the election. That Joe Biden has exceeded the electoral votes he needed to be the president-elect, and the writing is on the wall.
There's something interesting afoot in Republican circles tonight. I was making calls all afternoon, and it's clear that publicly many Republicans now will echo President Trump to some point. They'll try to show solidarity with him and with his voters to showcase to conservatives and Republicans that they seem to be putting up a fight. But what's evident based on my reporting, this is already a Republican Party looking ahead to 2021. They are preparing potentially to block different nominees put forward by President Biden. And they also believe, because they made gains in the House in 2020, they could make even more gains in the House in 2022 and in the Senate. And they also believe that President Trump won't be a central figure in these upcoming Senate races in Georgia. So it's a balancing act for many Republicans now to not feel like they're abandoning President Trump or his voters, but they feel like they're in a pretty decent position for the Biden era without him on the scene, at least in power.
You know, Mike Schmidt, we've got these pictures on in Wilmington, Delaware at the top of the hour. Joe Biden expected to address the nation, his first appearance as this country's president-elect. He is already at work on a transition. It's quiet, unglamorous work that usually involves lots of binders. Chris Christie had this role for Donald Trump for a while. Those transition binders ended up in a dumpster when Chris Christie was unceremoniously fired. And when you mentioned Bill Barr, I wondered, you know, while Joe Biden is going to be building a government, there's a lot of concern and some reporting in Axios and other places that Donald Trump may be destroying one, that he may be considering firing his FBI director, Chris Wray, firing his CIA director, Gina Haspel. Is there any reporting that suggests where Bill Barr would come down? Is his job safe or no?
Well, I talked to two people that are close to the president in the past 2 days, and what they said to me was that, you know, the president will, he may not come out publicly and say the right things, and he may not commit to a transition, but he will go. And the thing I pushed back on them, and I said, look, how is he going to act here? What is he going to do? And the president will be around until January 20th. And there is a lot that he could do there. There's a lot of scores that he could settle. He still is in control of the federal government, and that is not a small thing. And the president has repeatedly shown throughout his time in office, obviously, a willingness to destroy norms, a indifference to the law, indifference here to the results of an election. And it just remains to be seen what he will do as he stews around here in the coming weeks. There are people that he's very, very upset with. His FBI director, Chris Wray, his CIA director, Gina Haspel, Tony Fauci. These people who he thinks did not come to his aid to help him in his reelection. And now that he has lost it, that anger will build and foment.
You know, and Bob Costa, again, as we look at these pictures and these celebrations for a man who is a proud institutionalist, I think even more than being recognized as a partisan fixture, Joe Biden is recognized as a fixture of two branches of government, as the vice president for Barack Obama and in the United States Senate for decades. What do you make of the particular challenge of being a president-elect when the incumbent hasn't yet accepted the results of the election?
We are witnessing history tonight, not only the election and the formal certification, at least in terms of the exit, the polls being called for President-elect Biden and Vice President-elect Harris, but this is a fragile moment for American democracy. And the person I'm told by Trump associates who's most closely watching Vice President Biden tonight is President Trump himself. Can Vice President Biden meet the moment, not only in terms of offering a message of hope and healing to the American people, and Biden's aides tell me he will certainly do that tonight, but can he assert political capital as this incumbent president stews in the White House, refuses to concede? Can Vice President Biden say to the country tonight, I am heading into power with a mandate with 74+ million votes behind me? Yes, the other side got 70 million plus, but Vice President Biden tonight is speaking for the first time as president-elect, perhaps the most significant speech of the year and his career.
When two of the best reporters on the beat use the description stewing in the White House to describe Donald Trump, you know it's true. Mike Schmidt, Bob Costa, thank you both so much for spending some time with us. Mike Barnicle joins us now. He's an award-winning journalist, an MSNBC contributor, and he's written perhaps one of the most moving and emotional portraits of Joe Biden about the role that his humanity and his grief played in the final weeks of this campaign. We're also joined by historian John Meacham, who is also an MSNBC contributor and knows a whole lot about the human side of politics and politicians. Mike Barnicle, let me start with you. First, how's Joe Biden doing? Have you talked to him?
No, I have not talked to him. I assume that he's doing wonderfully well. He's waited for this all of his life, Nicole. You know that. And it is indeed an epic event in an exhausted and yet exhilarated country that we are all a part of. And I assume he is just as exhausted and just as exhilarated as most of the people who've been seen in these street scenes all around the country this evening.
You write about how everything he's been through lets him kneel down and hug someone who's hurting, lets him look into the eyes of someone in pain instead of looking away, the way, you know, all sorts of people do because it's so uncomfortable. Talk about how those skills, his humanity, helps him meet this moment for our country.
Well, those skills are innate. They weren't acquired along the way. You didn't learn them. There isn't a nap that teaches you how to have those skills. They were acquired by him personally through long years, the arc of his career, filled with success and sadness. And if you look at the sadness that has surrounded him when he was 29 years of age, as nearly everyone now is familiar with that story, he loses his young wife and his infant daughter, and he nearly loses his two sons. And then nearly 50 years later, when he's 72 years of age, he loses his son, Beau, the Attorney General and military veteran of Iraq, the Attorney General of Delaware. And in between all of those years, the sadness that he bore, the loss that he felt, it doesn't disappear after a brief period of time. You carry it through the years. Everyone knows that. And he carried it through the years. And he became an expert in the one thing that ties us all together, I think, in this nation, an expert on loss, not just loss of life or a loved one, loss of a job, loss of hope, loss of faith in an institution, whether it's the Catholic Church during the pedophile scandal, or whether it's an institution like the federal government that doesn't come to your rescue when you've lost your job and you're surrounded by the threat of COVID-19. And as a result of all that, he formulates a plan from 1972 onward, and probably prior to 1972. Through sadness and success, where does he go? He goes home. He went home nearly every night on a train when his two boys needed him when they were growing up. And he goes home after every event, whether it's sad or successful. And I think that's the direction he wants to take the country in. He wants to take the country home, home to what we once were prior to 4 years ago. A lot's different in this country, and not all of it is on Donald Trump, and a lot of it was there prior to Donald Trump becoming president. But the heart of the country is the heart of Joe Biden, and he knows what it's like to feel a loss, and he knows what it's like to feel great hope, and he has both tonight.
Mike Barnacle, there's not a more astute writer and observer of this country in this moment. I know you get in your car and you go out early and you just talk to people. What did you feel this week as this election result was suspended for 4 days?
You know, I think I felt the same thing that a lot of people felt. I felt impatience. I felt exasperation. I felt a little anger sometimes and a lot of anxiety. You know, why not make the call? What is wrong with our process? Why can't we count all these votes, the mailed-in ballots, prior to Election Day and announce the result at 11 o'clock or midnight on Election Day? But yet this afternoon, I was working this morning. This afternoon, I went to the grocery store. I went to the dry cleaners. I went to the gas station. And I was really surprised at the elation that you could feel in the air, that you could feel a palpable sense of a loss of tension in the air among people. And I'm not talking about just Biden voters. I'm talking about both sides here. Because at the end of the day, you know, it really is true. We are all Americans, and we all
like
have
Joe
a vested
Biden
interest in our
Kamala
story,
are
this story,
approaching
the story that's going
the-
to play out even further tonight.
Approaching the event space.
Mike, stay with us. We've got
Awesome.
some pictures of the motorcade of the Vice President-elect, Kamala Harris, arriving here for the victory speech. Delayed, but happening nonetheless. I think when history is told, people will not remember that it didn't happen on the night they had hoped it would happen, or the next night either, for that matter. In the words of Mike Barnacle, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris likely aiming to take us home to someplace more comfortable. Let's listen in a little bit. Is there anything to listen to, control room?
Am I going in front of these police?
Nope.
Oh, seems like we can hear from the motorcade. Sounds of that celebration there in Wilmington, Delaware. Is Mike Memley still with us?
Yeah, I'm here.
Mike Memley, do you have any excerpts from this speech? Do you have any other ideas along the lines of what Mike Barnacle's sense is of what Joe Biden's speech tonight is set to do?
They haven't released excerpts, Nicole, of his remarks, but I think when we should look ahead to tonight's speech, we should look back to two major speeches Joe Biden gave in the closing weeks of this campaign. The first one in Gettysburg, which was about the need to unite the country, and then a few weeks later in Warm Springs, Georgia, about the need to heal the nation. I think those lay out very clearly the way Joe Biden is approaching this moment. The pictures you were looking at, we did see Senator Kamala Harris, Vice President-elect, arriving here. Joe Biden, the President-elect, is still, I think, just at his home. We'll let you know if we do see him leave. But just to describe, I mean, Delaware is a very small state. Wilmington is a very small city. For 5 days now, this parking lot has been sort of taken over by Biden's campaign. I think when your name is on the train station in town, I think you can get away with a lot here. But you know, the campaign has done their best to do everything throughout this process in a COVID-conscious way, and it's interesting to look around and see most of the folks are still wearing masks. Social distancing is maybe not as good as it usually is, but there is all the cars you see and the folks outside behind me, those are folks, you know, friends, family, invited guests, especially of the party. I actually spoke with a few folks who I remember seeing in New Hampshire, some of those supporters who came down for this moment, even from a reminder of the darkest days of his candidacy. But outside the perimeter here, the secured perimeter, there's an even bigger gathering of just folks who've come down for this moment. You can imagine Philadelphia 30 miles up the road, D.C. not that far down the road. People have been coming from all over to be part of this moment for, you know, a candidate, a campaign who we always focused on, you know, crowd sizes in the primary. They didn't compare to some of the other opponents in the Democratic primary. The president certainly always focused on whether they matched his own crowds. It's a really celebratory mood here, and they're ready for a big party that I think will conclude with some fireworks like we saw in the Democratic National Convention here a few months ago.
Mike Memley, stay with us. I want to bring John Meacham into the conversation. John Meacham, if you could just pick up on what Mike Barnicle was saying about this emotional journey that the country's been on, not just the last 4 days, but the last 4 years. You kind of broke tradition and spoke at Joe Biden's convention. And it does seem like the emotional journey of the last 4 years has pushed people to do unconventional things. You see all sorts of national security figures who have never had any appetite for doing any press, let alone any political press, speak out increasingly over the last 4 years. Folks like yourself get involved in the final weeks of a general election. What do you think tonight represents in terms of the emotional journey of the country?
Well, this is a moment where the life of the nation is intersecting in a fascinating way with the personal life, not only of President-elect Biden, but also the Vice President-elect. The ticket, the incoming two nationally elected people, really do represent the panoply of the country. You have a man in his late 70s, a white guy from Scranton, who spent his life in the Senate, an institutionalist in the best sense, shaped, as Mike so brilliantly put it, by tragedy, by grief, and yet by perseverance and by resilience. You have Senator Harris, who represents in many ways the changing demography of the country. It's poetic that there's a lot of poetry tonight. This is exactly the centennial. 2020 is a centennial of the 19th Amendment, which enfranchised women for the first time in federal elections in the United States. And the first woman vice president has been declared in that year. You know, Vice President Biden, I think, represents a kind of tonic for a toxic politics. He's not perfect. There are vices, but there are a lot of virtues too. And I think part of what has shaped the country in many ways, I think largely for the good, to some extent it has not been commensurate with the challenges of the country, but there has been this figurative conversation that's unfolded since 1933, and it ended in 2017. And it was a figurative conversation between Franklin Roosevelt and Ronald Reagan. And America was governed basically on that field, in that tension. I've blown this thesis past Presidents Clinton, Bush 43, and Obama, and they all agree, actually, that they governed in a coherent and recognizable universe. Donald Trump's political universe was not coherent. It was, alas, recognizable, and I think we should be honest about that. The forces that he represents, nativism, xenophobia, racism, isolationism, the darkest parts of populism, those are perennial American forces. They ebb and they flow. They are ebbing tonight, but if we are not heedful and vigilant, they could flow again at any time. And I think that the Biden-Harris victory represents a moment where America said enough. We want to try to actually follow those better angels as opposed to always looking inward. We want to build some bridges as opposed to building walls.
You know, that is a really important point, that these forces that flourished under Donald Trump, the isms, as George W. Bush used to call them, nativism, protectionism, racism, they weren't washed away this week. They're tectonic plates that will constantly be pressing and pressing, and sometimes we may have a rupture and it may rear its head and do some damage, the way I think a lot of people feel the Trump presidency has done to our institutions, to our law enforcement agencies, to our intelligence community, to the norms and traditions of the presidency. And it plays out in the reporting that Bob Costa and Mike Schmidt just shared with us, that the best thing people around Trump can say is, well, we expect he will leave on the 20th. But no one is even talking about an incumbent president that will bestow upon his opponent the kind of legitimacy and respect that every other opponent in a presidential contest has bestowed upon his opponent. Does that do more to shape the Trump legacy, or does that really complicate things for Joe Biden, in your view, John?
Hugely important question, and I don't know the answer. It certainly shapes and cements Trump's legacy, unquestionably. Whether a constant war against the legitimacy of the Biden presidency has any legs, I'm not sure. I like to think not. To some extent, we kind of child-proofed the White House for President Trump, and now we're child-proofing the transition. You know, he's sort of this force out there who could, you know, mess things up. But we're trying to, you know, move things out of his path. I think the country fundamentally is stronger than any single person and personality. That's not to say that everybody who voted for Trump is going to salute and follow the norms of our democracy, but I think a lot of them will. And I think that part of President Biden's task going forward is going to be inviting them into that covenant of disagreement that shapes American life, right? I mean, disagreement is the oxygen of democracy. Jefferson said that mutual concessions had mutual disagreements had shaped free government since Greece and Rome. And Washington said that mutual concessions of opinion were the essential balm of a free government. And I think that's what we have to recognize, is that we're not going to get to a 95% agreement rate. We don't have to. What we do need to do, though, and this goes to your point, is we have to respect the arena. We have to respect the mechanisms by which one side or the other achieves temporary dominion in a given argument. Because if you don't respect those mechanisms, when your moment to achieve temporary dominion by winning an argument comes, then you won't be able to realize that. And so this is like religious liberty, right? You're for religious liberty because if you're in the majority sect, you know, you always have to be worried that you might end up on the minority side at some point. So it's just wiser to let liberty, as opposed to coercion, flourish. And at its best, that's what America's done. And here's hoping that this election, this decision, puts us back on that path.
Donna, let me bring in let me bring you and Claire back into this conversation. When we talked to Don Meacham, he really did bring the conversation back to the history being made tonight by Vice President-elect Kamala Harris. And I wonder, when the Obamas came to Washington as the first family, the world was riveted by their glamour, by their competence, by the beauty of their family and their marriage and the love that they obviously all had for one another. It seems to me that there's a similar sort of cultural phenomenon going on in the interest in Kamala Harris and her marriage and her modern family and her fashion and her style which is obviously a distant second to her intellect and her professional acumen and her integrity as a public servant. But it is a thing. And when you break a glass ceiling, when you break a barrier, when you make history, people are interested in the whole of you. How much do you think that is something that she's aware of, or do you think that'll be something that sort of greets her along with all the problems of the nation when she gets back to Washington in January?
I think that she's definitely aware of it. I mean, you know, when she put on her Chuck Taylors that came down the stairs of an airliner, all the rest of us were pulling our Chuck Taylors out of our closets. When she dances on the street, we're fascinated by that. When she does videos of her, you know, cooking for her family, we all want to watch. I think she knows that Americans are watching her and the world is watching her, and how glorious that is. And combine that with her intellect, we're going to get to see the whole person and get to know her in a way that we perhaps couldn't even do that on a campaign trail, much in the same way we've come to know Joe Biden over the last 40 plus years of his time in Washington. And so I just think it is a wonderful vibe that's coming into the White House, and we're all going to be part of that.
You know, Claire, I think about Kamala Harris, about all the ways in for her. I mean, most Americans experience some version of a modern family. She proudly had hers on display at the Democratic Convention. She is what every working woman strives to be. She has her priorities straight. She holds her marriage and her family first from everything that she shared. She's incredibly successful, and she does everything professionally with the utmost integrity. And I think there's a lot that I'm sure you relate to as you're both public figures, but I think any woman juggling multiple plates feels like she is this very modern and relatable version of this feminine ideal.
Yeah, if we think back to what used to be considered the all-American woman, it was like June Cleaver type character, right? With the apron, waiting for her husband to come home from work. Well, that's not what Kamala Harris is. Kamala Harris is independent, successful, strong, but she's also a devoted wife, and she's not ashamed of that. We have a lot of things in common in that we both started out as prosecutors, and we both are really part of a large and very tight blended family. This is what America is today. This is what American women relate to today, is someone who can do all of this. Now, she's got a lot of pressure on her, but she understands it's not like she didn't come from a state where she got a lot of attention. And she's had a lot of cruel things said about her in this campaign. I mean, ugly, down and dirty things said about her. But she is used to that, and she knows how to turn the other cheek with joy and to look right past all the people who want to talk about her hemline or her husband's or her hair or her outfit and use her position to get things done for people. It's going to be fun to watch. It really is, Nicole. It's going to be fun to watch.
John Heilman is joining us. I want to bring our friend John Heilman, are you still in Wilmington, Delaware, John?
No, ma'am.
No. Where are you?
I'm back in New York City. I'm back in New York City. What can I tell you? I'm home.
You're home. Jump in on this. I mean, Joe Biden is, I think, known the world over as sort of Joe from Scranton, but I think that because of that, it is overshadowed what I think for a lot of women is a very relatable life. Obviously, at a much more high-achieving level. She's the Vice President-elect of the United States.
God bless you, Vicki.
But there is a lot that Kamala Harris has shared in the course of this general election that I think will make her a very interesting cultural figure for the next 4 years.
Oh, yeah, I think 100% that's right. And I think, part of the reason why a lot of people, when she launched her campaign at the start of 2019, we all remember that event. I was at that event, not at home, out in Oakland, where, there were 20,000 people who showed up for her, and why there was so much promise around her campaign, and she did not ultimately prevail in the Democratic nomination fight, but she was a figure of enormous political and cultural interest and promise and potential. And a lot of people who go on to become president of the United States or go on to become vice president of the United States don't succeed in their first run for national office. She did not. But the power that she displayed and the curiosity she inspired were large parts of the reason why, against a very potent field of potential running mates for Joe Biden, why she was chosen. And not only why she was chosen, but why she was the front runner for the job from pillar to post. People forget, that Joe Biden looked at a lot of people who were all had credentials to be vice president, and he knew sort of from the beginning to the end that she was the one he wanted. And I would say that her performance as a running mate was flawless. I mean, she made not an error really as running mate. You can't remember a controversy. Right. You can't remember a foot that she put wrong. You can't. That's the story of running mates, right? Is that they are, even the best of them often make mistakes. She didn't make any mistakes, and she was someone who people feared would be the target, and was the target of an enormous amount of racist and sexist commentary by Donald Trump and his allies, and yet she bore through that with grace and with determination and with toughness, and came out the other side as having been nothing but an unalloyed asset to the president-elect, to her boss, to her number one, at the top of the ticket. So I think, as this woman with all of her complex and interesting ethnography, where the mixed family that she comes from, the mixed family that she now presides over, all of that, she has some of that Obama quality to her that is going to make her. She's thoroughly modern. I mean, she's a thoroughly modern figure, and she's going to be, I think, a figure of enormous aspirational obsession for many women in this country, particularly the younger ones, who are going to look upon her with an enormous amount of awe, I would say, as she proceeds. And again, she will make mistakes as vice president. They always do. But she walks into the job with a kind of raw material upon which to build a profile and further her political career. That's, I mean, other than Barack Obama in my career, I've not seen anybody really who came in with that kind of raw material. She fits the moment in such a powerful way. So there's a lot there for her potential, even as vice president, the first female vice president, the first and a non-white female vice president to boot. It's still, even now, she's only begun to scratch the surface of her political potential, I think.
We are talking about Vice President-elect Kamala Harris. She is already at the venue, the Chase Center there in Wilmington, Delaware. This now is said to be the President-elect Joe Biden's motorcade. He is en route to the Chase Center in Wilmington, Delaware, where he and Vice President-elect Harris will deliver remarks to the nation. They're running a little late, which is why we get to continue our conversation with all of our friends. John Hellman, you described Kamala Harris's time as the vice presidential nominee as flawless. I agree with that. I would put the Biden campaign in this general election in the same category. This was a campaign that had to reinvent the wheel. No one has had to run in the modern times during a raging pandemic. This was a campaign under a new kind of political assault from a president totally untethered to the truth, to the norms, to decency, to facts, who sought to put Joe Biden's family through the sort of political torment, usually reserved candidate to candidate. And this was a campaign that even this week, where they were tested again, and you were at campaign headquarters yesterday. Your thoughts on this Biden campaign?
Yes. Again, I would say, all the things you just said are true, Nicole, and I think it is not, and yet it will be eventually. Books will be written, and other things will, and other retrospectives will be published, and people will dive into this. But it's not been given the kind of exposure that it deserves. The job that Jen O'Malley Dillon did as the campaign manager. I mean, if you think about it. Joe Biden had struggled throughout and fought his way through all of 2019. He had this extraordinary 10 days, one of the most extraordinary 10 days in the history of politics, from the South Carolina primary through Super Tuesday, where he went from having, as we all know, finishing 4th in Iowa, 5th in New Hampshire, 2nd in Nevada, and then suddenly breaking through in South Carolina, running the table and becoming the nominee as the pandemic crashed down upon the country. And the new campaign manager arrived as the headquarters were being shut down. And with the challenge ahead of her to build a general election campaign, from a nomination contest campaign that had been chronically underfunded, that had not had a ton of money, had not had a ton of people, had not had a big, giant national organization, nothing like what Barack Obama built in 2008 or 2012, nothing like what Hillary Clinton built or Bernie Sanders built, for that matter, in 2016. She walked in a kind of a threadbare campaign and had to take it from the middle of March until the end of the spring and transform it into a full-blown national nominees campaign without ever meeting anybody face-to-face who she hired. She had to build that campaign on the strength of her contacts in the business and on Zoom. And the whole campaign at its peak was displaced. They never spent another day together in the headquarters. And you know, having been through national campaigns, Nicole, how much proximity matters to building a culture, to building a communications apparatus, to building a messaging operation, to doing rapid response, to all the blocking and tackling that a campaign needs to do. Sitting in the same room with the high command is something that is essential, right? They never had that luxury. And Jen O'Malley Dillon came with all her experience from those two Obama campaigns. And yes, and being with the candidate, and she came with all of her experience from these two Obama campaigns, an esteemed figure, someone who many in that world that we all revere for its skills, the Obama campaigns. They all thought, they said, this is the woman who should be running this campaign. Joe Biden and his campaign and the people there saw the wisdom of that, said, yes, this is the woman. And she she performed, I mean, this is the degree of difficulty of putting this campaign together under these circumstances is, I think, harder than anything a campaign manager in the modern era has ever had to confront. And she did it against all the other things that you laid out, and then managed to, maybe not flawlessly, but close to flawlessly pull it off and win a historic victory. It's amazing. Honestly, amazing.
So, and I think it has importance beyond sort of former campaign folks, because I think there is not a campaign you can think of that isn't shaped from the person at the top. So it says a lot about Joe Biden's leadership. Here's another story, though, that's just breaking in this vein. Joe Biden plans to an immediate flurry of executive orders to reverse Trump policies. The Washington Post has just written this. If Bob Costa is with us, I'm going to ask you about this reporting in the Washington Post. It says, quote, he will rejoin the Paris Climate Accords, according to those close to his campaign and commitments he has made in recent months. And he will reverse President Trump's withdrawal from the World Health Organization. He will repeal the ban on immigration from many Muslim-majority countries. And he will reinstate the program allowing dreamers who were brought to the United States illegally as children to remain in the country, according to people familiar with his plans. Bob Costa, it's clear that while we were all eating ice cream and staring at cable and watching Leslie Jones videos, Joe Biden was hard at work.
The context of the Washington Post story tonight is important. President-elect Biden and his allies are looking ahead to 2021. And while they would like to pursue gun reform legislation, a public option on health care, a repeal of the Trump and Republican tax cuts, they know that the Senate could be narrowly divided, maybe have a Republican majority. In light of that reality, they're pursuing an aggressive agenda on executive orders. And to go to John Meacham's point about restoring American institutional acceptance and embracing of institutions globally, they will rejoin the Paris Climate Accords. They will make sure the U.S. is back in the World Health Organization. At the same time, next Monday, in just a couple days, they will make sure they have a coronavirus task force and start looking ahead to how he can address that issue. But this is about using executive power to also reinstate different regulations from the Obama years on the climate and the environment. They want to send a message to the country, to the world, and to Democrats that while Washington may be divided, a Biden White House will pursue policy, goals in an ambitious way, but it just might be executive order at first, not through sweeping legislation.
Mike Barnacle, it sounds weird to read a story about policies. I mean, we are so far from debating policy ideas in this country, and in some ways, the conversations, I mean, this list of policies is also so interesting. In repealing the ban on immigration from Muslim-majority countries, many Trump, I would say all Trump critics view that as one of the stains, the whole bucket of immigration policies from Donald Trump, one of the most shameful chapters in American presidential history. But rejoining the Paris Climate Accord and reversing Trump's withdrawal from the World Health Organization goes to something Claire said earlier, you know, the sounds of the bells from Paris, sort of rejoining the world community.
You know, Nicole, one thing that Joe Biden is really, really good at, and it's a self-acquired aspect of who he is, his character, healing. He has learned how to heal himself through all the sadness that we've talked about and all the success that we've seen over the years. And he heals himself by going to his faith, his church, the Catholic Church. He's a man of great faith. And to his family. And the Biden family is actually a tribe. They assemble around one another, and they savor each other, and they give each other strength. So it comes now to healing the country, to healing the country's wounds, to healing the country in the eyes of people in Europe and Asia and throughout the globe.
Yes.
Healing. It means that Joe Biden has an understanding for the lost, for the lonely, for the dispossessed, for the middle-income people who think they're losing their homes because they've been out of work for 6 months, to those on the edge of getting evicted this evening because they have no money and there's been no CARES Act, an aptly misnamed act that ended in July 31st. Joe Biden feels all of that around us. It's visible to him. We drive around, we go past pain. We don't know the sorrows and the heartaches and the burdens that a lot of people are carrying. Joe Biden feels this instinctively because who he is and the life he's led and the heart he has. And that heart, that beating heart, is coming to the United States of America.
Yeah, I do want to say just real quick, guys, talking about healing, talking about feeling people's pain. I do think that it's good right now. We're all partying. I'm drinking beer. Many of us have been partying all day. I do think that, and what we just watched was Barack Obama's acceptance speech from Grant Park in 2008 after he defeated John McCain. Look, the country was in a different place. I think Joe Biden, I think his message tonight is going to be sobering. Unfortunately, look, I want to party. You know what I mean? I want to move forward. But I do think that Joe Biden is going to have a very sobering message for us, and that it's just going to remind us that like today is just one day in a long battle.
Kristen Welker joins us. She's at the Chase Center in Wilmington, Delaware. Kristen, we've been talking about the new reporting in the Washington Post about Joe Biden's flurry of activities, the executive orders, rejoining the Paris Climate Accord, repealing Trump's
Tom, welcome back, man.
World Health Organization, reversing Donald Trump's Muslim ban. Do you have any additional reporting in this vein?
I don't, but what I can tell you, Nicole, is that this squares with what he said he was going to do. I mean, he effectively said that from day one he was going to rejoin the Paris Climate Agreement, that he was going to rejoin the World Health Organization. He wants to reverse President Trump's immigration policies. And don't forget another part of that, Nicole. He wants to form a task force on day one to reunify those 500 children who still remain separated from their families.
Take care, John.
President Trump's zero-tolerance policy. And what I think we can anticipate seeing is President-elect Biden moving very quickly to try to implement his agenda. Remember, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi said she believes Biden has a mandate, and clearly he does too. And so I think that this is consistent with everything that they have been saying. But I have to tell you, and we're waiting for President-elect Biden and Vice President-elect Harris to speak, and that's going to happen momentarily. But they have said that their first and biggest challenge is trying to unify this country. The Vice President, former Vice President, now President-elect Biden, has said that he's not naive to the fact that this is going to be quite difficult. In fact, the whole reason for launching his presidential campaign, of course, was in the wake of Charlottesville. He said he was fighting to heal the heart and soul of the country. And so that is where he is going to begin, I think, his work. Healing the country as it relates to the deep divisions, as it relates to COVID-19, as it relates to this economy. And so, Nicole, these executive orders, this reporting by the Washington Post is certainly consistent with everything that Biden has been signaling as a candidate and now a president-elect.
Claire McCaskill, we are now just moments away from President-elect Biden taking the stage. We will also hear tonight from Vice President-elect Kamala Harris. We've got a headline in the Washington Post, and Kristen Welker adding some more context here of a flurry of activities. But most notable, as the president-elect, it appears he has already spent more time trying to heal the country from the coronavirus pandemic than Donald Trump has in recent weeks and months.
Good night, Tom.
This seems like, you know, if you want to unite the whole country wants to get past the coronavirus pandemic. These seem like very well considered, well thought out first moves for President-elect Biden.
Look for some news on Monday when Joe Biden will announce a group of people that he will depend on to move forward in terms of doing what needs to be done in the middle of this public health crisis, which, by the way, has been raging this week. We've all been consumed with getting the ballots counted, but we've lost a lot of Americans this week. We have record numbers all across the country. So I think Monday he will start that work. And I did see that McConnell said he was going to work on a stimulus when they got back. So I could see them being a discussion between McConnell and Biden as early as next week about ways to move forward on the coronavirus. That is, if McConnell's willing to do it. He might be able to do it privately without telling anyone. But I think that they will quickly try to send a signal to the country. He wants everything to stay open, but with the right guidelines and with science as the master of the discussion.
You know, John Meacham, Mike Barnacle's language is ringing in my ears. You know, that what Joe Biden does is heal the nation. What every American, regardless of political affiliation, is in danger of right now is this pandemic and all of the economic carnage that has ensued because of our inability to contain it, to track it, to test for it, to protect ourselves from it. What do you sort of make of the first objectives, the first moves, the first mission of President-elect Biden?
I think you're right. I think there's and Mike's right. There is a pandemic. There is an immediate challenge. It's a challenge of science. It's a challenge of trust in terms of people trusting expertise and authorities and mayors and governors and a president to level with them, to give good advice and then to follow that advice. It's a case study in whether Americans are able to operate with reason in a world that has been long roiled by partisan passion. So there's an immediate step here, an immediate action item to deal with, because it is about trust. It is about decency. It is about patriotism. Wearing a mask is not is essentially a patriotic act. It's a vivid, tangible sign that you actually care about your neighbor. And so we can all talk and do endlessly about the greatest commandment and civility and reaching out and compromise. But there's a very straightforward, patriotic step we can all take, which is to put on a damn mask. And that is proven to be beyond the ken of the incumbent president. So in an interesting way, this is a pretty straightforward step for an incoming administration to reestablish the primacy of reason and try to build trust one with each other.
You know, John Heilman, I'm thinking of a line in former President Obama's first inaugural address when he promised an end to childish things. It would seem that Donald Trump has brought us back to childish things. I mean, the fact that we have a debate about masks is just straight up stupid. It is just stupid stuff. Why are we debating this? I was at around 8-year-olds today. They all had a mask on. They were outdoors and no one came within 10 feet of each other. The fact that we have a debate in this country about masks is a symptom of just how debased the political discourse is. And I guess my question here is, with the bar so low, it seems impossible to think that Joe Biden can't improve upon it. But do you...
Yep. We got movement. Here we go. Let's do it. All right, Joey. What do you got for us, man? Let's go. Let's go. All right, guys. Let's like the stream, and let's share the stream so that we can get people in here for before Joe Biden goes on. Man, thank you guys for coming in and watching this with me. It has been a week. My goodness, has it been a week? Oy. All right, time to move forward. Onward and upward. Let's get it going. Sweet. All right, Joe. We're ready for you, man. A lot of us have been ready for this moment for 4 years. Here we go. Ooh. All right. I'm going to do this. There's some music playing, so... Kamala's coming on first, guys. Which we haven't really seen before.
Good evening. Good evening. Good evening. Good evening. Thank you. Thank you. Good evening. So, thank you. Good evening. So, Congressman John Lewis, before his passing, wrote, "Democracy is not a state, it is an act." And what he meant was that America's democracy is not guaranteed. It is only as strong as our willingness to fight for it. To guard it and never take it for granted. And protecting our democracy takes struggle, it takes sacrifice, but there is joy in it. And there is progress, because we, the people, have the power to build a better future. And when our very democracy was on the ballot in this election, with the very soul of America at stake, and the world watching, you ushered in a new day for America. To our campaign staff and volunteers, this extraordinary team, thank you for bringing more people than ever before into the democratic process. and for making this victory possible. To the poll workers and election officials across our country who have worked tirelessly to make sure every vote is counted, our nation owes you a debt of gratitude. You have protected the integrity of our democracy. And to the American people who make up our beautiful country, thank you for turning out in record numbers to make your voices heard. And I know times have been challenging, especially the last several months. The grief, sorrow, and pain, the worries and the struggles. But we have also witnessed your courage, your resilience, and the generosity of your spirit. For 4 years, you marched and organized for equality and justice, for our lives and for our planet. And then you voted. And you delivered a clear message. You chose hope and unity, decency, science, and yes, truth. You chose Joe Biden as the next president of the United States of America. And Joe is a healer, a uniter, a tested and steady hand, a person whose own experience of loss gives him a sense of purpose that will help us as a nation reclaim our own sense of purpose. And a man with a big heart who loves with abandon. It's his love for Jill, who will be an incredible First Lady. It's his love for Hunter and Ashley and his grandchildren and the entire Biden family. And while I first knew Joe as vice president, I really got to know him as the father who loved Beau, my dear friend who we remember here today. And to my husband, Doug, and our children, Cole and Ella, and my sister Maya, and our whole family, I love y'all more than I can ever express. We are so grateful to Joe and Jill for welcoming our family into theirs on this incredible journey. And to the woman most responsible for my presence here today, my mother, Kamala Harris, who is always in our hearts. When she came here from India at the age of 19, she maybe didn't quite imagine this moment, but she believed so deeply in an America where a moment like this is possible. And so I am thinking about her and about the generations of women, Black women, Asian, white, Latina, Native American women who throughout our nation's history have paved the way for this moment tonight. Women who fought and sacrificed so much for equality and liberty and justice for all, including the Black women who are often, too often, overlooked, but so often prove they are the backbone of our democracy. All the women who have worked to secure and protect the right to vote for over a century, 100 years ago with the 19th Amendment. 55 years ago with the Voting Rights Act, and now in 2020 with a new generation of women in our country who cast their ballots and continued the fight for their fundamental right to vote and be heard. Tonight I reflect on their struggle, their determination, and the strength of their vision to see what can be unburdened by what has been. And I stand on their shoulders. And what a testament it is to Joe's character that he had the audacity to break one of the most substantial barriers that exists in our country and select a woman as his vice president. But while I may be the first woman in this office, I will not be the last. Because every little girl watching tonight sees that this is a country of possibilities. And to the children of our country, regardless of your gender, our country has sent you a clear message. Dream with ambition, lead with conviction, and see yourselves in a way that others may not, simply because they've never seen it before. But know that we will applaud you every step of the way. And to the American people, no matter who you voted for, I will strive to be a vice president, like Joe was to President Obama, loyal, honest, and prepared, waking up every day, thinking of you and your family. Because now is when the real work begins, the hard work, the necessary work, the good work, the essential work to save lives and beat this epidemic, to rebuild our economy so it works for working people, to root out systemic racism in our justice system and society, to combat the climate crisis, to unite our country and heal the soul of our nation. And the road ahead will not be easy, but America is ready. And so are Joe and I. We have elected a president who represents the best in us, a leader the world will respect and our children will look up to, a commander-in-chief who will respect our troops and keep our country safe, and a president for all Americans. And it is now my great honor to introduce the President-elect of the United States of America, Joe Biden.
Hello, my fellow Americans, and the people who brought me the dance, Delawareans. I see my buddy Senator Tom Carper down there, and I think Senator Coons is there, and I think the governor's around. Is that Ruth Ann? And our former Governor Ruth Ann Minner. Most importantly, my sisters-in-law and my sister Valerie. Anyway. Folks, the people of this nation have spoken. They've delivered us a clear victory, a convincing victory, a victory for we the people. We've won with the most votes ever cast on a presidential ticket in the history of the nation. 74 million. What I must admit has surprised me. Tonight, we're seeing all over this nation, all cities and all parts of the country, indeed across the world, an outpouring of joy, of hope, renewed faith in tomorrow, bring a better day. And I'm humbled by the trust and confidence you placed in me. I pledge to be a president who seeks not to divide, but unify, who doesn't see red states and blue states, only sees the United States. And work with all my heart, with the confidence of the whole people, to win the confidence of all of you. And for that is what America, I believe, is about. It's about people. And that's what our administration will be all about. I sought this office to restore the soul of America, to rebuild the backbone of this nation, the middle class, and to make America respected around the world again, and to unite us here at home. It's the honor of my lifetime that so many millions of Americans have voted for that vision. And now, the work of making that vision is real. It's a task, the task of our time. Folks, as I said many times before, I'm Jill's husband. And I would not be here without her love and tireless support of Jill and my son Hunter and Ashley, my daughter, and all our grandchildren and their spouses and all our family. They're my heart. Jill's a mom, a military mom, an educator, and she has dedicated her life to education. But teaching isn't just what she does, it's who she is. For American educators, this is a great day for y'all. You're going to have one of your own in the White House. And Jill's going to make a great First Lady. I'm so proud of her. And I'll have the honor of serving with the fantastic Vice President who you just heard from, Kamala Harris, who makes history as the first woman, first black woman, the first woman from South Asian descent, the first daughter of an immigrant ever elected in this country. Don't tell me it's not possible in the United States. It's long overdue. And we're reminded tonight of those who fought so hard for so many years to make this happen. But once again, America's bent the arc of the moral universe more toward justice. Kamala, Doug, like it or not, your family, you become an honorary Biden. There's no way out. All those of you who volunteered and worked the polls in the middle of this pandemic, local elected officials, you deserve a special thanks from the entire nation. And to my campaign team and all the volunteers and all who gave so much of themselves to make this moment possible, I owe you. I owe you. I owe you everything. And to all those who supported us, I'm proud of the campaign we built and ran. I'm proud of the coalition we put together, the broadest and most diverse coalition in history. Democrats, Republicans, independents, progressives, moderates, conservatives, young, old, urban, suburban, rural, gay, straight, transgender, white, Latino, Asian, Native American. I mean it, especially for those moments, and especially for those moments when this campaign was at its lowest ebb. The African American community stood up again for me. You've always had my back, and I'll have yours. I said at the outset, I wanted to represent this campaign to represent and look like America. We've done that. Now that's what I want the administration to look like and act like. For all those of you who voted for President Trump, I understand the disappointment tonight. I've lost a couple times myself, but now let's give each other a chance. It's time to put away the harsh rhetoric, lower the temperature, see each other again, listen to each other again. And to make progress, we have to stop treating our opponents as our enemies. They are not our enemies. They are Americans. They're Americans. The Bible tells us to everything there's a season, a time to build, a time to reap and a time to sow, and a time to heal. This is the time to heal in America. Now this campaign is over. What is the will of the people? What is our mandate? I believe it's this. Americans have called upon us to marshal the forces of decency, the forces of fairness, to marshal the forces of science, and the forces of hope in the great battles of our time. The battle to control the virus, the battle to build prosperity, the battle to secure your family's health care, the battle to achieve racial justice and root out systemic racism in this country, and the battle to save our planet by getting climate under control, the battle to restore decency, defend democracy, and give everybody in this country a fair shot. That's all they're asking for, a fair shot. Folks, our work begins with getting COVID under control. We cannot repair the economy, restore our vitality, or relish life's most precious moments, hugging our grandchildren, our children, our birthdays, weddings, graduations, all the moments that matter most to us until we get it under control. On Monday, I will name a group of leading scientists and experts as transition advisors to help take the Biden-Harris COVID plan and convert it into an action blueprint that will start on January the 20th, 2021. That plan will be built on bedrock science. It will be constructed out of compassion, empathy, and concern. I will spare no effort, none, or any commitment to turn around this pandemic. Folks, I'm a proud Democrat, but I will govern as an American president. I'll work as hard for those who didn't vote for me as those who did. Let this grim era of demonization in America begin to end here and now. The refusal of Democrats and Republicans to cooperate with one another, it's not some mysterious force beyond our control. It's a decision, a choice we make. And if we can decide not to cooperate, then we can decide to cooperate. And I believe that this is part of the mandate given to us from the American people. They want us to cooperate in their interest. And that's the choice I'll make. And I'll call on Congress, Democrats and Republicans alike, to make that choice with me. The American story is about slow yet steadily widening the opportunities in America And make no mistake, too many dreams have been deferred for too long. We must make the promises of the country real for everybody, no matter their race, their ethnicity, their faith, their identity, or their disability. Folks, America has always been shaped by inflection points, by moments in time where we've made hard decisions about who we are and what we want to be. Lincoln in 1860, coming to save the Union. FDR in 1932, promising a beleaguered country a new deal. JFK in 1960, pledging a new frontier. And 12 years ago, when Barack Obama made history, he told us, yes, we can. Well, folks, we stand at an inflection point. We have an opportunity to defeat despair, to build a nation of prosperity and purpose. We can do it. I know we can. I've long talked about the battle for the soul of America. We must restore the soul of America. Our nation is shaped by the constant battle between our better angels and our darkest impulses. And what presidents say in this battle matters. It's time for our better angels to prevail. Tonight, the whole world is watching America. And I believe at our best, America is a beacon for the globe. We will lead not only by the example of our power, but by the power of our example. I've always believed, and many of you heard me say it, I've always believed we can define America in one word: possibilities. That, in America, everyone should be given an opportunity to go as far as their dreams and God-given ability will take them. You see, I believe in the possibilities of this country. We're always looking ahead to an America that's freer and more just, ahead to an America that creates jobs with dignity and respect, ahead of America that cures diseases like cancer and Alzheimer's, ahead to an America that never leaves anyone behind, ahead of America that never gives up, never gives in. This is a great nation. It's always been a bad bet to bet against America. We're good people. This is the United States of America, and there's never been anything we've been not able to do when we've done it together. Folks, in the last days of the campaign, I began thinking about a hymn that means a lot to me and my family, particularly my deceased son, Bo. It captures the faith that sustains me and which I believe sustains America. And I hope it can provide some comfort and solace to 230,000 Americans who've lost a loved one to this terrible virus this year. My heart goes out to each and every one of you. Hopefully this hymn gives you solace as well. And it goes like this: and he will raise you up on eagle's wings, bear you on the breath of dawn, and make you to shine like the sun, and hold you in the palm of his hand. And now together, on eagle's wings, we embark on the work that God and history have called upon us to do, with full hearts and steady hands, with faith in America and in each other, with love of country, a thirst for justice. Let us be the nation that we know we can be, a nation united, a nation strengthened, a nation healed. The United States of America, ladies and gentlemen, there's never been anything we've tried we've not been able to do. So remember, as our grandpapa used to say when I walked out of his home when I was a kid up in Scranton, he said, "Joey, keep the faith." And our grandmother, when she was alive, she yelled, "No, Joey, spread it. Spread the faith. God love you all. May God bless America, and may God protect our troops." Thank you, thank you, thank you.
I saw a lot of comments talking about getting goosebumps, talking about the feelings they were feeling. It is one of the most emotional days in the United States of America, in the history of this country. Today is such a huge day. So much riding on today. So much riding on Joe Biden and Kamala Harris's shoulders. And they delivered. I mean, look, you know, say what you want to say. Are they progressive enough? Are they this? Are they that? The soul of the country, literally, the soul of the country was resting on their shoulders. You guys, if Donald Trump won another 4 years, the work that would have to go into overdoing his mess would have been it would have been hiking Everest 10 times. No oxygen. But Joey did a fantastic job. Kamala did a fantastic job. Let's see if we can just kind of, I mean, the line of the night from Kamala. I may be the first woman in this country to hold this position, but I'm not the last. And walking around the celebrations that I saw earlier today, young girls and celebrating and seeing the pressure off of their parents' backs and off their parents' shoulders. It is a huge day. I mean, this election means so much more than just what we're feeling right now. What we're feeling, our kids are feeling, they're seeing all this, but they're also seeing our response to this, and it's just, it is absolutely, Kamala, not the last. You are not the last woman, girl. I going back to there's no red, there's no blue states, and you think, and I'm just kind of I'm approaching this from like a political standpoint. You know, you think some of these people who maybe aren't in tune with politics, who don't understand, or who are conservative and who just want to nitpick at Biden's, you know, words in this. No red, no blue. The important thing about that is that you have to remember that for the past 4 years, blue states have been under attack. Straight up under attack in the United States by Donald Trump. You can even look at his pandemic response. Attacking blue states, attacking the way that they handled the PPE, attacking the way that they handled the funding, attacking the way that they communicated with the federal government. Another line I loved, it was a great day for American educators. You'll have one of your own in the White House. I'm Jill Biden's husband. Joe Biden. And again, you know, the main point here, guys, the main story of this election and of the past 4 years is women. Women. Kamala Harris, first female to hold the vice presidency, not the last. And odds are Kamala Harris, first female to hold the presidency, and not the last. Talking to Trump supporters. Let's give each other a chance. Let's see each other. Let's hear each other. We are not enemies. Like a plea to come together, and from there going straight to the Bible. It's a time to heal, using the Bible's rhetoric, the Bible's language. What is Joe Biden's mandate? He focused on that. He spent time on that. It was decency. That was the first thing. Decency and fairness. Science. Racial justice, fixing systemic racism, climate, fairness. I mean, these things, decency and fairness, he went back to. And then straight from there into controlling the pandemic. I'm a proud Democrat, but I'm going to be your American president. The demonization ends here and now. I'm pretty sure. I mean, I'll bet my bet a buck on it that demonization is the first time that word has appeared in a presidential acceptance speech. And he says it's going to be slow. He says the fight to restore our soul is going to be slow, but that it will happen. Because what presidents say matters. And it's a bad bet to bet against the United States. I loved he was able to take a speech that could be considered. There's Joey with his kids. Oh man, that's where it is, guys. That's it right there. Those babies, those 7-year-olds. That's what the fight was for, guys. That was what the fight was for. Oh man. All right, let's go back to it and see what are they playing music? If they're playing music, I'm gonna have to mute it. Let's see what we got here. Yeah, we'll go back to full screen. I need to work on clipping that up and then So it looks like we have the family's on stage here. Joey's out there waving. Leave only your footprints. All that fall shall rise again. Right? Yep. That's great right there. Well, we did it, guys. Oh, we did it. We did it. Oh, my goodness. Mm. Mm-hmm. Mm. All right, guys. Oh man, well, thank you guys so much for joining in the last few days of this coverage. This was a remarkable time. And if it reminds us of anything, it's that you can do amazing things when you come together. And there's no obstacle that we can't overcome. And it restores faith in the United States of America. It restores faith in humanity. And so I hope you guys have had a good day with me, and you enjoyed yourselves walking down the San Diego celebration and watching Joe and Kamala and their supporters in Delaware, and the coverage and discussing it. And I've had such a great time, reading all you guys' comments. It's been great. It's been a pleasure. Yeah. So I am going to sign off for the evening, unless there's like some, I don't know, crazy breaking news, but I don't think there's going to be anything. This is a pretty historic moment. So, let's just all just kind of like take a deep breath in and out, and then we'll sign off. I'm just gonna like. We're Americans. Some of us in the chat are global citizens, but it's great. It's great to be a part of this movement, and I appreciate you guys so much. So until tomorrow, I'm going to sign off. For Reflect News, I'm Brendan Plank. Thank you guys so much for watching.